There's a different kind of conversation starting to echo around this team, and if you followed the Lakers long enough, you recognize when something real is building behind the scenes. This isn't noise for headlines. This feels like a front office quietly admitting that what's happening in the paint right now just isn't enough for what this franchise demands. And when that realization hits in Los Angeles, things don't drag, they shift fast. What I'm hearing is simple, but it carries weight. A 7'3" presence with real instincts, not just size, is now firmly on the radar. Not as a luxury, not as a long-term project sitting at the end of the bench, but as a piece that could immediately change how this team functions on both ends of the floor. Because let's not pretend otherwise, the inconsistency at center has already cost this team control in games where it should have imposed itself. And inside the organization, there's a growing belief that the old approach, patching the position with temporary solutions, is done. You can feel it. The patience is gone. The expectations here don't allow for almost working. Either it holds up in June, or it's not good enough. The name gaining serious traction is coming out of Michigan, and what stands out isn't just the size. It's how he sees the floor. We're talking about a big who doesn't panic when the ball touches his hands, who can read movement, who can actually create something instead of just finishing plays. That changes the math of everything when your offense already runs through a primary decision-maker like Luka and a secondary creator like Austin Reeves. Because here's the truth most people don't say clearly enough. When your stars draw pressure, the next pass decides everything. And right now, that's where possessions have been dying. You fix that, and suddenly the same roster starts looking a lot more dangerous. If you're still riding with this team through all of this, write Lakers pride in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of moment where real fans show up. Now, from a front office perspective, this isn't just about talent evaluation. This is about direction. There's a real understanding that throwing money at another veteran big doesn't solve the core issue. It might stabilize things for a few months, but it doesn't build anything. And with the financial pressure around the roster, hitting on a young piece with a defined role becomes more than smart. It becomes necessary. And then there's the internal pressure, because let's not dance around it. The current situation at center hasn't delivered consistency. There have been flashes, sure, but this team doesn't operate on flashes. You can't have long stretches where the middle of the floor feels exposed, especially when everything tightens up later in the season. If you follow the Lakers and don't want to miss the next big story around this franchise, make sure to subscribe right now. Drafting a player like this sends a message without anyone needing to say a word. It tells the locker room that production matters, that roles are earned, and that nothing is locked in just because of expectations from the past. At the same time, there's another layer here that people around the league are paying attention to. The long-term vision. This isn't just about trying to fix the next game or even the next playoff series. This is about building something that holds up over years, not months. A center with this kind of size, timing, and passing feel doesn't just plug a hole. He reshapes how you play. And defensively, that's where the impact could hit immediately. When you have someone who can erase mistakes at the rim, everything else tightens. Perimeter defenders play differently. Rotations get cleaner. Opponents start second-guessing drives. That psychological edge, that's been missing. Offensively, it opens a different door. Not just pick-and-roll finishes, but decisions out of the short roll, quick reads, extra passes that punish defenses for collapsing. That's how you turn pressure into points without forcing anything. If you believe this team is still one move away from flipping the entire narrative, comment "Never count out the Lake Show," because that's exactly the kind of shift we're talking about here. And the timing of all this, it's not random. With the draft getting closer, the noise around this name is only getting louder. The question now isn't just interest. It's how aggressive the front office is willing to be if the opportunity is there. Because when you identify a fit like this, waiting can cost you. What's coming next could define more than just a season. It could decide how this version of the Lakers is remembered. And there's already movement behind the scenes that hasn't fully surfaced yet. That's where this starts to get even more interesting. Because around the league, when front offices start moving earlier than expected, it usually means there's more than one plan being worked on at the same time. And with the Lakers, the read from people close to the situation is that this potential draft move wouldn't come alone. It feels like the first step in something bigger, almost like a shift in how this team wants to define itself moving forward. There's a real concern about how this roster holds up when the game slows down. When things get physical, when possessions start to matter more, you need a presence in the paint that doesn't just absorb contact, but controls it. And right now, in too many stretches, that presence just hasn't been consistent enough for a team carrying this kind of expectation. What makes this situation more interesting is that this isn't just about fixing one end of the floor. It connects directly to how this offense is supposed to function. A big who understands timing, who doesn't overhold the ball, who can make quick, accurate reads. That keeps everything flowing. It prevents stagnation and gives your perimeter creators more room to operate without forcing difficult looks. And when you start putting those pieces together, you can see the outline of a different kind of team. Not one that relies purely on individual brilliance, but one that moves with purpose. A center who connects actions instead of slowing them down can quietly change the identity of an entire system. Now, inside the building, there's also pressure building. Every move from this point on is going to be dissected, not just by the fan base, but by everyone watching this franchise closely. In Los Angeles, there's no room for guesses. You either get it right, or the noise gets loud fast. Right, championship standard. If you believe the Lakers should always be chasing the top. That's why whatever decision comes next has to be precise. It's not just about talent, it's about fit, timing, and understanding exactly what this team is missing. And more importantly, not repeating mistakes that only delay real progress. Lakers fans, subscribe to the channel because we follow every move this team makes during the season and the offseason. Another layer here that people aren't fully addressing yet is the locker room impact. Bringing in a young player with this kind of feel for the game shifts roles immediately, minutes change, responsibilities shift, and not everyone is going to be comfortable with that. But that's part of what comes with trying to raise the level of a team that expects to compete deep into the season. If history tells you anything about this franchise, it's that meaningful changes are rarely comfortable. They come with friction, with tough decisions, but they also come with clarity about where things are headed. And for those of you who want to stay ahead of everything happening with this team, this is the moment to subscribe to the channel. Because there are still details behind the scenes that haven't surfaced yet, and when they do, they're going to change how a lot of people see what the Lakers are building right now. What's coming next doesn't feel small. It feels like the kind of move that sets direction, not just for the rest of the season, but for the years that follow. And once that starts unfolding, you can already sense it. The conversation around this team is about to shift in a serious way. And the closer we get to the draft, the more this starts to feel like a decision point that could ripple through everything else the front office has planned. Because when you bring in a player with this kind of profile, you're not just adding depth, you're redefining roles, expectations, and even the pace at which this team wants to play. There's also something else worth paying attention to. The way this prospect has been performing under pressure hasn't gone unnoticed. Big stages tend to expose weaknesses, but in this case, it's been the opposite. The reads are sharper, the timing looks natural, and the confidence isn't forced. That matters when you're talking about stepping into a situation where every possession is watched, analyzed, and remembered. From a roster-building standpoint, this kind of addition gives flexibility that hasn't been there. You're no longer locked into one style of play. You can adjust depending on matchups. You can punish teams in different ways, and most importantly, you're not predictable. That's something this team has struggled with at times, especially when defenses start loading up against primary creators. And when you zoom out, you can see the intention behind it. This isn't about chasing quick fixes anymore. It's about building something that holds up, something that doesn't need constant patching. A foundation piece in the middle changes how everything else is layered on top of it. At the same time, there's a quiet urgency behind all of this. Not panic, but awareness. The window that exists right now doesn't stay open forever. Every move has to respect that reality. You're balancing the present with what comes next, and that's where front offices either separate themselves or fall behind. Right La still believes if you trust, the Lakers can rise when the pressure gets real. And if you've been around this team long enough, you know how quickly things can turn once the right pieces fall into place. The energy shifts, the confidence builds, and suddenly the conversation around the league starts to change. But here's the key part that hasn't fully come out yet. There are still internal evaluations happening that could influence how aggressive this front office decides to be on draft night. It's not just about who they like, it's about how far they're willing to go to secure that fit. And that's where things could take an unexpected turn. If you want to stay ahead of those moves before they hit the mainstream and understand what's really happening behind closed doors, you need to be subscribed right now. Because once these decisions start unfolding, the details move fast, and the difference between knowing early and reacting late is everything for a real fan following this team closely. There's a sense that something is lining up here. Not just a pick, not just a roster tweak, but a direction that could define the next phase of Lakers basketball. And the way this is building, it doesn't feel like it's going to stay quiet much longer. And if this move comes together the way it's being discussed internally, it won't just fill a gap. It will reset expectations around what this team can be on both ends of the floor. That kind of shift doesn't stay contained. It carries into every matchup, every possession, every moment where games are decided. There's a reason this is being treated with this level of attention. Not every draft decision feels like it matters beyond development. This one does. This one has the weight of timing, fit, and identity all tied into it. Comment, the banners tell the story if you believe the history of this franchise still matters today. And stay locked in here, because what's about to unfold could define more than just the next season. Subscribe now and don't miss what's coming next, because when this story fully breaks, you're going to want to be ahead of it, not catching up after everyone else.